Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Chaos. And what better way to start this story than this visual? Now, you see that person smack in the center of the image? Well, in this story, that person is not me. I got trampled 3 screens ago, left for dead, nobody caring. But here I am, rising from the ashes to bring you this story. Now, I absolutely love this picture. I think it beautifully captures the chaotic energy that all of us developers have experienced from time to time. I mean, imagine the inside of that battlefield. The frantic pacing, the cries, you feeling that everything is on the line. Well, sometimes we felt like that when we were dealing with unruly and fragmented business rules at work. And disclaimer, you might see some more disturbing visuals, but rest assured, unlike the infamous finale of this web series, our story has a brighter and a happier ending. Gets me to my talk. How did we embrace this chaos? What all steps did we take to untangle the mess we found ourselves in a couple of years ago? And how KMP was our ally in this journey? Now, a quick run through of the domain we are working with. Show of hands, how many of you have heard of Posten Bring as a company before today, before now? Okay, few. For rest of you, imagine a company or an institute which predates your great-great-great-great-grandparents. I mean, we are one of the oldest organizations in the country, in Norway, maybe even in the world. I mean, we are almost 400 years old. We just celebrated our 378th birthday. And of course, the software hasn't been around for 400 years, but it has been around for decades. So you can say that what we were dealing with and still are is generational software. To give you some more context, when you book that thing online, right, the whole journey, right from it leaves the warehouse till it reaches your doorstep, there are millions of lines of codes and thousands of business rules that enable that very flow. Okay, so you have a basic idea of what the domain was or domain is that we're working with. Now, the problem statement. When I joined Posten Bring a decade back, we had this huge monolith, exactly the one which downloads the history of the universe while you go get your coffee. But one good thing with that monolith was that all the business rules were centralized there. Now, over the years, because of microservices and other feature development, it was decided to break down this monolith into more manageable apps. So what you see on the screen is just a visual representation of that. The backend APIs, the front-end apps, public APIs, internal APIs, everything in between. Now, we were having a wonderful time not having to deal with this monolith, but for one caveat. You see X in all of those apps. Imagine that X as a representation of a business rule, and you see the values as well. So you see where I'm going with this. There was no single source of truth anymore. We had duplicated rules. We had rules which were implemented differently in different apps. Again, show of hands. How many of you have been this person, sifting through millions of lines of code, trying to understand what on earth is this code base doing? And how many of you have been the person who's cursed the predecessor and the developer who's written that code? More hands, and rightly so. I read a blog post by JetBrains that 60% of developers' time is spent on understanding code, on reading code more than writing code. And that was one of our biggest challenges with this setup. Apart from, of course, there was no traceability, as you can see, not just for production issues and bugs, but also for like a simple request from our product owner, how is this rule implemented? We used to spend hours only to, not come to a conclusion as to, okay, how is this implemented? Because it was implemented differently in different apps. And apart from the developer pain, there were some business consequences attached to this. Let me give you a quick example. We have dangerous goods delivery, and then we have something called flexible delivery. Flexible delivery is nothing but you calling in and saying, hey, I'm not home, so dump this in front of my door, in my backyard, or on the sidewalk. Now, these two rules should not go hand in hand. The validation should kick in. But for some reason, if it doesn't, I think you know where I'm going with this. You'll end up with explosives on your sidewalk. Not that Posten Bring delivers explosives, but you get what I'm trying to say. There were major business consequences of not having a handle on these business rules. And if I sum up the first section, yeah, there was just price attached to this chaos. Slow feature development, inconsistent rule set. It used to take us months to launch a new service in our APIs or on our UIs or in our apps. And if I summarize, I think people or developers who had to work with this code base were just unhappy. And in my head, that's the biggest red flag you can have in a team if you have an unmotivated lot of developers working with the code base. So, what were we chasing? Of course, we wanted single source of truth. We wanted everything centralized. We wanted duplication to go take a vacation. We wanted testing and maintenance of these apps to take a nosedive, the cost there. But what we really wanted was this. And I hope Lord of the Rings fan appreciate this visual because that's what we wanted. We wanted one code base to run them all, exactly like One Ring, but not to yield dark powers, but just to have some semblance of control over all these business rules. And my personal favorite is the last point on the slide. It's the last one, but the most important, and that's developer happiness. Because if we are green in that section, everything just falls into place automatically. Now, we had these lofty dreams. How are we planning to achieve them? Back in 2019, what we decided as a team was to start really small, to not get overwhelmed by the enormity of the task in front of us, because we were dealing with generational legacy software here. We thought, OK, every time we get a business feature, we will do some technical refactoring. All the rules that are related to that particular business feature development, we'll pluck them out of these different apps and dump them in that common library, which was just spitting out a JVM artifact, which we then were using as a dependency in our backend APIs. So that person we related to, they heaved a sigh of relief. For 2 years, we did this. But that happiness was short-lived because come 2021, we realized, hey, we still have our front ends left. And just a disclaimer, like we don't have any mobile apps in our team. So what I'm talking about is just backend and server-side and JS, like front-end and backends. So we realized that, OK, front ends are still an octopus with tentacles everywhere. So how do we, and we had to spend so much time on that common lib for 2 years that we didn't want to create another library to validate our front ends. We somehow wanted to use the same library to also power all our front end and UIs to validate these rules. And that's a nice segue into why we are here, KMP. Why we started using KMP is it employed Kotlin. Most of our apps, those legacy apps were written primarily in Java. And our assumption or our understanding that it's interoperable with Java, we just realized that, hey, we will not have to reinvent the wheel here, not learn everything from scratch. Like the learning curve will not be that steep, and that was correct. That assumption was correct. It had and it still has a very strong community support. It supported diverse build targets, and the talk before me, seeing industry-leading players like McDonald's or Netflix using this in production just gave us that confidence back in 2021 to at least start a POC with KMP. And of course, option to extend to native targets. Like I said, in our team, we don't have any, we don't own any, we're not responsible for any mobile apps, but Posten Bring as a company has a lot of mobile apps, both on iOS and Android. And seeing our success with this for our front-end and back-end APIs, those teams have started their journey with KMP and Compose Multiplatform. Maybe they'll have something to share next year. And now let's dive into the code. I fear demagogues, so no actual live demos, but some snippets that I was allowed by my employer to share. So we have common main, where we've dumped all those business rules. What you see is just a snippet of a very extensive list. And then we have JVM main and JS main, only 2 platform-specific modules. And what is in those is basically just a way to expose that rule out to our backend APIs and our front-end apps. Let me give you an example. We have a lot of fun methods at work, but I chose this one because it was the simplest. Is shipped by boat, because why not? There are like a bajillion rules determining whether a shipment can be shipped by boat or not. And those aren't relevant, but those all are dumped in the common main. What you see here is almost similar functions, but because Java allows for more complex and Strongly typed code, you'll see enum in the function parameters. That won't fly with JavaScript, so then it's string. The most important distinction here is that annotation JS export, because that tells the Kotlin compiler that, hey, this function, interface, class, variable needs to be bundled up into the built JavaScript library with all the TypeScript annotations and everything. It basically makes it available as a global object in your JavaScript files. Now, so if I give you a visual representation, we have the common main where all of the rules are dumped. Then we have JVM main and JS main with all the class files, interfaces, methods, exposing that rule out, which spits out a JVM artifact and an NPM artifact. And we have the most amazing thing is that we now have 1 million test cases exactly testing this. So all the manual testing has gone out of the window. My favorite part is deploying this to production from like a tram ride home or a metro ride home, because now we are confident in our builds. If it's green, it goes out into production. Now you have these artifacts. Then we publish them to Maven or NPM registry, whether public or private. And that last line of code is there telling that don't build any native libraries because we don't have any of those in our team. How do we use these dependencies? Like any other dependency. Just dump it in your pom.xml or package.json. And this is how you call the method from your backend APIs, whether they're written in Java or Kotlin, and from your front end. As simple as that. It just behaves like a normal Java or JavaScript function. One of the good things that this wasn't an intention when we started with this POC, but one of the good things came out of this is that now this centralized KMP library is used to generate documentation behind our rules for our dev site. So like I said, the domain, what I've been talking about is just tip of the iceberg. It is extremely complex. So we don't dump all the business rules out on our developer side, but we do have a section dedicated to business rules so that developers like you, when you integrate with our APIs and solutions, you get some understanding of what the domain is. But that dev site was always out of sync with our APIs or front ends. It was saying something else here, and we were validating something else. So it generated a lot of customer cases and questions from developers and technical people. But now this is live documentation because we use that library to create a JSON which powers this HTML page as well. So every time there's a change in that library, it just automatically is reflected in our dev site, which is amazing. So have we demystified X at work? I would say a resounding yes. I have been on both sides of the screens. So I would say there's a spring in my step, joy in my heart, and really color in my life. I actually like coming to work and working on this. We know what X is now. It's not different values. We are not no longer confused as to what that business rule is doing. But is it all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns? Well, no, nothing is. This is my Slack message to some people and a PR from last month, actually. So we've been doing it for 4 years now. This is me just telling, hey, this is still not in sync. Why are we not fetching this from the common KMP library? Why is this app doing it locally from the database? So I would say it's like cleaning up your garage. There's one box, like adamant pesky box that's always there. So I would say we still have some trek left here. We are not done yet with this migration. It's an ongoing process, but hey, we are not wandering aimlessly anymore. We know where we want to go, and that's amazing to know where we want to reach. Now, wrapping up with some insights gained. Did we achieve everything we set out to achieve? I would say yes. We have a centralized source of truth. I would like to say that the time to market has reduced drastically. I mean, what used to take us months to launch a new service, now that is a matter of days. Even when there is coordination involved with other teams, that's just a matter of days, and business sees that now. All the technical refactoring we've been doing for the last 4 years, it has helped a lot. There's no fear-driven development. We actually, like I said, I deploy to production from a tram ride back home. And that's how confident we are in our test cases and builds now. And mind you, this is powering some of the most critical apps in Posten Bring, which brings in revenue for the company. Uh, the team isn't here, but I would say like Mondays are fun. Everyone is happy. My personal favorite is making product owners self-sufficient. Like, if you remember the anecdote I shared from before, when product owners asked us, how is this working, this is no longer a debugging session for a developer. Our product owners are rock stars. They have GitHub accounts. So now we just share that Kotlin file with them. Kotlin is easy to read. It's concise. It's intuitive. They can read at least the basic rules, not the complex ones. And they also create pull requests sometimes. And it has to go through a developer review. They're not going batshit crazy with the code, but our product owners also create pull requests. So it has really helped us a lot. Not just the developer happiness, but just improving our relationship with business and our product owners. Of course, everything hasn't been all smooth sailing. Like I said, we started dabbling with KMP in 2021 when it wasn't even production ready or stable. So I can imagine the hesitancy in the company at the time, but hats off to them for at least giving us a breathing space to do this POC back then. And because it wasn't stable and production ready, we had to be on our toes for all the breaking changes that JetBrains was spitting out week after week. So there were a lot of experimental features in the beginning. There was some, we were primarily Java developers, so there was some mindset shift to learning Kotlin because there was risk of siloed skills in the beginning, but it has improved over time. And our assumption that it's not a steep learning curve turned out to be completely correct. One thing that was plaguing us a couple of months or years back was that the generated JavaScript package was bloated, but we have optimized that using Webpack 5 support. And my favorite here is, takeaway is piggybacking technical changes onto your business features, like I said before. I guess everyone is aware of that acronym, what's in it for me? That's what business would tell you. Nobody would give you time and money to do this for years. So that's what we've learned from this approach, that start small. OK, I'm almost over, but ready to untangle your spaghetti. Hope this inspires some of you to at least go read those case studies and see if anything fits your use case. And I would suggest that iterate and improve, start small, and that's what we really love about KMP. It's the flexibility for us. You're not committed to do a full-scale migration. You can start really small, like just with that constants that are repeated in every app. And yes, thank you for listening in. I'm 2 minutes over, but if you like the talk, vote. And if you have any questions, please, I'm still at the conference, so just grab hold of me and we can chat. Thank you so much.